Hello. This is Catherine Watkin of Selling from the Heart. I work with small business owners who want a great business and who want to enroll more clients but don't want to compromise their values or their integrity in the process. Now, I'm doing this live video today to talk about running a business as an HSP and highly sensitive person. Now, you may have seen a video on the same topic earlier on today. I realised after creating the first Facebook Live that this is actually quite a valuable message and something that I'd like to send out a little bit more widely. So I'm re-recording so that I can get to the point a little bit more quickly. I think the earlier one was a bit more waffly. I don't know if any of you ever do that, do a second Facebook Live so that you can get it a little bit more succinct. It's also a little bit more windy than it was earlier on, so fingers crossed that's not going to get in the way of what I want to share. So basically, running a business as a highly sensitive person, I definitely identify as highly sensitive. I know that I have all of the traits. I'm going to talk about those in just a moment. Hello, Judy. And I know that this has affected the way in which I run my business. As a result of my highly sensitive nature, I also had a long-term history with a long-term chronic health condition. So I have had to adapt the way that I run my business to support my own needs and to support my health as well. But sometimes I can slip in to forgetting that I'm highly sensitive and that there are reasons why I do things the way that I do. And so, for example, just at the moment, I'm actually travelling the UK in a camper van. During the lockdown here, myself and my partner decided to follow a long-held dream. We've bought a camper van and we're spending the summer travelling in the UK, probably over to Europe as well. I'm working out of the camper van, he's not working, we're travelling, we're also looking for somewhere where we might like to settle long term. And as part of that, the arrangement is that I'm working reduced hours. I'm still serving all of the clients within my programs. I'm doing all my business as usual stuff. But what I'm not doing any big launches and I'm not saying yes to any new commitments. And of course, this was a conscious decision that I made to follow a dream and to take a slower pace over the summer. But I see so much online and I see all my business peers launching programs and go. And this little whisper starts to come in to me, which is, what is it about me that is taking things at a slower pace? Why aren't I more like them, in quotes? Why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I doing more? I could be doing so much more to grow my business. What about that podcast I've had on the back burner for the last several years? And I caught myself in a little bit of this type of thinking. And then to my appreciation, I'm not sure if that's quite right English, but a lovely lady called Jennifer joined my new Facebook group, and on joining said that the reason she was drawn to join my Facebook group was because she'd come across me and knew that I was a highly sensitive person, and she didn't want to learn sales and business from anybody who was not HSP. And it was like a little bit of an aha moment for me. It was, I'm highly sensitive. Catherine, it was like I'd been forgetting. And I temporarily started to be tempted to drive myself and to tell myself to be more like those people who are not highly sensitive. And that's what can happen if you are like me and you identify as HSP, that you can see all those messages that we come across online where other people are telling us very confidently what we should be more like. And it's very easy for us to start to think that we should be more like something, or we should be less like something in order to be successful. Whereas actually, the real strength for us, if we identify as HSP, is to do business in a way that supports us and plays to our strengths. And actually, this video today isn't just for you if you identify as being highly sensitive. It's for you if you're a human being. Why should you have to become somebody that you're not in order for your business to be successful? Isn't it so much better to create a business that truly works for you? Now, this doesn't mean for a minute that I'm against the idea of personal development or personal growth. Both of those things have been huge factors for me in my becoming the person who I am today, running the business that I am, the most of the time, very happy, very well balanced, very resilient person. And I know that my commitment to my own personal growth and development has been part of that. But I think there's a big difference between personal growth and growing into an understanding and a self-awareness of ourselves and working through those things that actually hold us back in damaging ways, and forcing ourselves to be something that we're not in order to create a business that looks and feels like a business for somebody with a very, very different set of makeup and wiring. And hopefully you may relate to that whether you identify as HSP or not. So Jennifer, thank you for that. I don't know whether you'll end up watching this, but I just wanted to say thank you because it's prompted me to share this, because I know that I'm not a lot of people who identify as highly sensitive are part of my world, part of my community, because I do share in places that's part of my makeup. But because I don't talk about it all the time, I can forget myself. So what does highly sensitive even mean? Well, it means that I'm very easily overwhelmed, very easily. And that overwhelm, if I'm not careful, will lead to burnout, which is why I had a journey of over a decade with a debilitating chronic health condition. I had ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, before I came to understand this about myself and understand the fact that I couldn't run my life in the same way that people who are not so sensitive. It means I'm highly sensitive to overstimulation. So this would include things like noise, like I can't work if there's noise around me. I can't play music while I'm working. But it's also any sort of overstimulation, so very large crowds. I just don't enjoy large crowds at all. I feel claustrophobic. But it comes down to things like overstimulation in terms of the number of channels, like the number of different messaging channels where I'm receiving input through my work, and the number of different channels that I have to manage. The sheer number of things I have to do every day can be overstimulation for me. I'm emotionally very sensitive. I'm emotionally sensitive personally, but I'm also very emotionally sensitive to other people's emotional responses. And I'm much better at that these days, but that is something that's thrown me off in the past as well, where perhaps, I have a large community. I have a mailing list of multiple thousands of people, and I have a membership community of over 350 people. It would be impossible for me to never ever say anything that doesn't inadvertently or accidentally offend or upset somebody, much as I wouldn't want to. And so every time I say or do something that's misinterpreted or misunderstood, or maybe I inadvertently offend, I get very upset by that. And I've had to learn how to release my own responsibility from that. And I also need a lot of alone time, a lot of downtime in my life. All of those things are very typical of anybody who identifies as highly sensitive. I'm also an introvert. I'm a pretty big introvert. I enjoy some social interaction, but I'm a big introvert, and that combines with the HSP traits to make running a business like the one I have, it gives it more challenges. Much as I love what I do, and I feel so fortunate that I came across this work and this way of working, I love the fact that I can be sitting in a field here in Devon with a view of the sea, and I can coach and support my clients at the same time. I love that I get to teach and help and support all day, because I'm a teacher and a helper first and foremost by nature. In order to allow me to do that, I also have to be good at marketing. And I'm a marketing expert, and I love marketing and I teach marketing. But sometimes the things that I need to do for my business to be successful don't feel as comfortable or as natural or come as easily as they do for other people who are perhaps less sensitive, a bit more gung-ho, a bit more extrovert than I am. So I thought that I would share a few of the things that I do and don't do in terms of the way that I've designed my business to support my highly sensitive nature and help ensure that I support my health at the same time. So one of the first things, probably the key, most important thing that I do, that I see that a lot of my business friends and peers don't have to do, is I have a zero tolerance approach to stress and overwhelm. For me, overwhelm is pure kryptonite. When I get overwhelmed, I become miserable, I become unhappy, I start to question what I'm doing with my life, I can get emotionally overwhelmed, I might cry. And it also affects my health. So long-term chronic health is the biggest thing that would tip me back into my old chronic health and chronic fatigue patterns. And so as far as possible, I design my business. Now I run a 6-figure business. and I have 350 people in my membership right now, and I have a team of 3 people who support me, about to be 4. It would be impossible for me to never feel overwhelm or stress, but I try and design my business to have as little overwhelm in it as possible. I also, as part of that, I have plenty of downtime built in. I have a cut-off point every day beyond which I do not work, no matter what is going on. And I try and ensure that I have the amount of personal quiet time that I need every day. I also take a reasonable amount of holiday. I say reasonable. I take the summer months. I always take at a slower pace, and it's that going at a slower pace that allows me to take this time off to do my camper van adventure. I also take a long break over Christmas. To me, it's hugely important to take holiday that is true holiday, where I'm not working at all, complete switch off my brain from business. I have very clear boundaries. I establish very clear boundaries about when I'm available, who I am available to. I have very clear boundaries about the sorts of channels through which you can reach me, and when and how you can reach me. And part of having these clear boundaries is that for me, from the very, very beginning of my business, having an assistant to deal with my emails has been like the number one highest priority. That's always going to be my first hire, because I find that a lot of emails and incoming messages is something that can overwhelm me very quickly, particularly if there's a lot of them and it's hard to get back. And as your business grows, of course, the more the business grows, the more messages, the more emails, the more incoming stimuli there are. And I also have a fully online business. That's another secret for me. So in the early days, first 2 years in business, I grew my business by getting out and about. And I still recommend this to most people outside of pandemic times, obviously, as ways of growing their business. I went to events, I met people and built relationships in person. I did a lot of speaking engagements, I did a lot of workshops. It worked for me perfectly because it grew my business to a certain point. And I did enjoy it hugely. But it also took a lot out of me. Going to an event, talking to lots of people all day, being in the energy sphere of maybe hundreds of people in one room at one time, absolutely zaps my energy. Similarly, going to do speaking engagements. And what I found was that it would take me so long to recover from those things because of the way I get overstimulated and overwhelmed by those sorts of situations, that although I loved it, it took me a long time to recover. And I eventually made the decision to switch to a fully online business. Yes, I partly wanted the location freedom. I've always had a dream of living and working out of a camper van and living and working while travelling, although I hadn't made it a reality properly until this year. That there was also this big piece about the number of days it would take me to recover and get back on an even keel after being out in the world, meeting and interacting with a lot of people. So a fully online business really helps me manage that hypersensitive space. So those are the things I do. Plenty of downtime, fully online business, clear boundaries, and a zero tolerance to overwhelm. Overwhelm is like kryptonite for me. I do get overwhelmed, of course I do, but when I do, I recognise that I have to rein it in as quickly as I can, and I do have strategies for dealing with overwhelm, which I'm happy to share. I think it would be useful maybe to share on another video at some point. There are also things that I don't do in my business that other people do. These are things that I have to not do in order to protect my sensitive nature and protect my health. But these are also sources of frustration for me, because these mean that there are things that I would love to do in my business that I either don't do or haven't done yet. It also means that I look at business peers and colleagues and business friends out there, and I see them going from one launch to another launch, multiple programs, lots of action, working non-stop. I've spent the day with one of my I have a couple of business colleagues who, when I spend the day with them, they are constantly multitasking. They might be socializing, but they're constantly posting on social media, responding to messages at the same time. A level of incoming stimuli and outgoing stimuli that I would not be able to cope with without getting overtired and I would just crash and burn in the end. So things that I don't do in my business, and this might be reassuring for some of you who maybe feel a little bit like I do. I don't juggle multiple projects at once. I've learnt this over the years. If I try and take on multiple projects, I get overwhelmed. When I get overwhelmed, I become unhappy. For me, the most important thing is my day-to-day happiness and well-being. And so that means that there are things that I really want to do that go on the back burner. And I focus on maximum 1 or 2 projects at any one time, and I focus on those projects until they're done. And the only time that I ever take on more projects is if I have a member of my team who is willing and able to lead and take on a project for me and see it through to completion with just a minimum amount of interaction with me. And of course, you can see how that would be frustrating for me at times, because there's also a part of me that's a very ambitious person who has a big vision for what I want to achieve. And I could get a lot more done a lot more quickly if I was able to juggle multiple projects. Something else that I don't do is I don't run a complex business model with lots of different levels, lots of different projects, lots of different products. Because with that would come lots of different automations, lots of different tech, lots of different team members, lots of different payments to reconcile. Lots of different sets of admin. Every time you add a level onto your business, you're adding a layer of complication, and one way or another, that all has to be managed. And so I have a business model made up of a membership, and my core revenue stream is the Business from the Heart membership, designed to support small business owners grow a successful business in alignment with their values. That's my core revenue stream, and that's the only thing that I have to do. And so there is that relieves some pressure from me, because the other 2 revenue streams don't have to be there, and I can sort of choose how much or how little of them I choose to do. I then have an online course, Get More Clients Saying Yes, teaching authentic sales conversations and how to enroll clients without being pushy, manipulative or sleazy. I run that once a year only. And each year, depending on my capacity, I might do a very complex launch and include a lot of extra support in that course. Sometimes I've done a very small launch and offered very reduced support. It varies very much. And I currently have a small group mastermind for a small group of women. I don't normally have that, but I brought that in because I had a real yearning to work a lot more closely with a few people on their businesses, because in a large-scale membership, it's not possible to work with people as deeply unless they choose to show up to all of the calls. And that's something that I brought in recently, but 6 months ago that wasn't in place either. So it's a very simple business model, and it relies on one revenue stream, which is the membership. And so if you're also HSP, you may choose to have a simple business model. You might choose to only have one-to-one clients, and that is your model. Or you might choose to only have one online program and you launch it just once or twice a year. There is no rule that says you have to have multiple different levels. Some people teach that it's essential that you do that. I've learned that following the advice that says it's important to have multiple different products and multiple different levels of program, although I see the sense in the argument for it, I've learned that for me it doesn't work because it leads to overwhelm. Another thing that I do to avoid overwhelm is I don't do a lot of social media. Now, if you don't believe me, go and check my social media profiles and you will see that I'm telling you the truth. I don't do much social media at all. And it has never been a core marketing strategy of mine. It's never been something I've relied on. And when I do it, I do it intermittently. Facebook Lives I love. I'd like to be more consistent with them than I am. I share my blog posts and my videos. When I do them, I do share them on my Facebook page. Apart from that, I've never adopted social media as a strategy. And that's because for me personally, I find it really overwhelming and I find that there's too much input to deal with. So if you do a lot of social media, as you'll know, you can't just broadcast out, you need to interact with people as well. So as soon as you start sharing and posting, the responses start coming in. And then for me, the pressure builds because now I need to go back and respond to the comments that I actually instigated. And I find that really overwhelming. That's kryptonite for me. So I don't do much social media. And I definitely don't choose for it to be a core marketing strategy. Of course, I'd be a bit silly not to do it at all. It's a platform that allows me to reach people the world over. There might be somebody watching this right now today that is reaching me, that is discovering me and my teachings for the first time because I'm doing a Facebook Live. But by not making it a core part of my marketing strategy, it means that I can do it in a way that feels more in flow, and there isn't the pressure on me to be putting out output and interacting all the time. It's almost like it's an add-on for me. It's a part of my marketing strategy, but it's not a core part, and if I didn't do it, my business wouldn't fall apart. I'm also not on the go all the day. Like I said at the beginning, I have start times and finish times, and when I'm not working, I am not working. I see business friends of mine who are literally never off. Now, they are far more productive than me. They have bigger businesses than me. They launch new programs and new products all the time. They create new revenue streams all the time. They manage bigger teams than me. They are on the go all the time. They will, I think I mentioned earlier, when I spend the day with some of these women, usually they're women, I'm in awe of the multitasking that they do throughout the whole day, and it doesn't really stop. These are the people you can send a message to at 10 o'clock at night and you'll get a reply. At 7 in the morning and you'll get a reply. I switch off. I have switch off times where I'm not checking social media, where I'm not checking my Facebook groups for my programs, where I'm not checking my emails, where I'm off. I have on times and I have off times. So those, I think, are the main things I wanted to share. I'm hoping that I've got that across a little bit more quickly than I did with the session I did earlier on, and a little bit more succinctly. So I guess the core message from this today is that if you identify as somebody who is highly sensitive, please don't fall into believing a lot of the messages that do come at you from the online space in particular, telling you that you need to be different to who you are, or that there is something really integral about you that has to change in order for you to be successful. This is not the case. You can adjust the way that you do business to suit you and your personality and what works for you and your energy levels. Similarly, if you are not a highly sensitive person, you can then also adapt your business to suit you and your personality. None of us have to compromise on who we are or try and be who we are not for our businesses to work. That was what we had to do in the old days back in corporate. That's not what we have to do in our businesses anymore. And linked to this is, choose your teachers wisely. There are some very strong, extroverted people out there who would not classify themselves as sensitive, who are actually quite thick-skinned, who will teach you a certain way of being and doing in your business. Be very mindful of their messages and whether those messages really are true and what you need. And look out for those people who are more like you. Look out for the highly sensitive people who have grown successful businesses, or look out for the people where you feel you've got a lot more in common with, and role model the people who are like you. For a long time in business, I role modeled off women who were extremely extrovert and extremely high energy, and then beat myself up because I couldn't keep up. I still sometimes slip into that, starting to follow somebody online, where I very quickly come to feel inadequate and question, why is it I can't be more like that? And then I realise this is not a good role model for me. What they're teaching might be totally valid and make total sense, but this is not a good role model for me if it has me feeling that I'm not enough in some way. And I would rather find the people who feel more in line with me. And so, people who are more committed to their health and well-being, rather than business at any cost, people who are committed to spending time with their families, people who are ambitious and want to create great things and make a big difference in the world, but there's a limit to what they're willing to sacrifice to do that. So I hope that this was a useful session for you. It's nice having a few of you on. I'm just having a quick look if there's been any quick comments. Do type in and let me know if you've taken something valuable from this, if I've given you any light bulb moments, if I've maybe given you permission to do more of something or to not do something that you feel that you've been telling yourself you have to do. Let me know if I've helped you feel better about yourself, if maybe you've been buying into somebody else's message recently and that's been making you feel less than in some way, because you're not less than in any way. You've just got your own unique way of doing things and your unique way of making that work for you. And also, if there's anything I've shared that you might take away that you're going to start doing or not doing yourself and start implementing. So do type in and let me know. If you're watching the replay, type in hashtag replay. Let me know what's landed for you. You can do the hashtag replay, or you can tag me. I just always love to hear from you. And thank you for your time and your attention today. Lots of love to you. See you all very soon. Bye bye.